I like the backdrop.
Oh, thank you very much. Wanted you to feel at home. Julian, this movie was so good. I, of course, saw the whole show and the last movie, but this movie was so emotional for me.
Oh,
I cried through the whole thing when I wasn't laughing, of course.
well,
Um,
that's lovely to hear. Thank you.
what's it like to go from writing these characters on a television show where you have to constantly create new a new engine every week to making a movie where you have to sum everything up at the end? How does your brain work differently as a writer?
Well, the writing challenge of taking a television series to a film is that in a series you have more latitude. You know, not everyone has a major story every week.
Mhm.
They're around, but they probably have a story that's about them once every 3 or 4 episodes. And apart from that, they're in other people's stories. They're in the kitchen working. They're sitting in the library hearing about a boyfriend. They're not being the engine. But that doesn't work in a film. Everyone in the film has got to have a reason to be there. At least that's what I think. And you want every actor to feel they've got a real contribution to make and they've got something to do. So that's, in a sense, the task, which is to plait all those stories together, some of them big stories that go right through the movie, some of them quite minor stories that just 3 or 4 scenes or whatever. And that's the job. But on the other hand, that is the job. And there are plenty of writers who read your magazine who would know exactly what I'm talking about. And the one thing that American writers have, which I always admire, is you're much more trained for the so-called writer's room, where you pick up the style of a show and you pride yourself in your ability to continue in that style. We don't really have that yet. We're beginning to have writers' rooms, but there is a sort of feeling that your episode ought to be completely unlike everyone else's episode, which of course is not what you want. You want people who are going to be able to write within the discipline of the show. But anyway, I'm not really answering your question.
I know you are. Yes, because you're famous for writing every episode yourself. Because I think you said once that you couldn't find other writers, or you just preferred to do it yourself when you were doing the TV show.
Yes, I mean, I have quite mixed feelings about this, actually. With Downton, we tried a bit in the first series, but neither of the writers, both of whom were very nuts and hardworking and everything.
Yes.
But there was something about the style of Downton, the mixture of comedy and real life, that they couldn't quite find. And also, in Downton, we very much wanted to make a point that everyone is doing their best. The ordinary way of doing Downton, particularly in British television at that time, would have been to have the family all horrible and all the servants very sympathetic and nice. But we didn't want to do that. We wanted to have everyone doing their best. So Robert or Carson, they're both nice men doing their best. And that's what we wanted. And that seemed to be too out of step with what was going on at that time to get people to understand it. But I have a co-writer in the Gilded Age called Sonia Warfield. And she is very helpful to me. It's an arrangement I really enjoy. And she's everything I'm not, for this. She's American, which is the main thing. Right. And she's African-American, which, is helpful. Although I never in a way want to say that as if she's doing the African-American stories and I'm doing the other, which is not the case. We alternate on first drafts, and then I have the privilege of sort of combing everything to make it all have the same voice. But she's very, very good with stuff where she'll say, no, we wouldn't say that. That wouldn't happen. This is, what we should do is this. And that's great. And also, she's a woman, although I rather reject the current thinking that if you're a man, you can't write a woman, and if you're, not Jewish, you can't act someone who's Jewish. I don't believe in any of that. I think a decent writer, a decent actor, a decent anything can do anything.
Yes.
And if they can't, they're in the wrong job. So I don't really go with that. But I mean, nevertheless, I've spent my career writing strong women. I suppose it's what I'm kind of known for. And that's because I've known a lot of strong women in my life, including my mother and my wife, the two key women for most of us that we will ever know. Neither of them were blushing violets. And I trust strong women. I'm used to them and I trust them.
This is great. I love getting a window into your writing process and also how it evolved from Downton to Gilded Age, which I love as well. And the fact that it's American, because it's a little bit different. Let's talk about the new era, the latest film. You did something really interesting. You gave a parallel between Lady Mary and Violet. They both are faced with these sort of challenges of their morality. I'm not sure how better to articulate that without spoiling it. And I wonder, I never really saw them as parallels, but you do you give them similar qualities in this film. And I wonder if that was something that you intended to do. Yes,
I always wanted Mary to be a believable granddaughter of Violet. And really the process of writing Mary and watching it come to life in Michelle's hands has been following her from a sort of petulant, rather difficult, snobbish, selfish young woman who is over entitled, but strong. She was always strong.
Yes.
And gradually she learns to control her own strength. And she goes through the period as a young widow, because she's a very young widow, of experimenting sexually and with her emotional life, because in that society particularly, a widow had a freedom unrecognized and unspoken of, but real nevertheless, that an unmarried girl did not have. And she exploits that in an attempt to kind of find her own happiness and what she's looking for, all of which I think is completely believable. But we've now come to a point where she is even more in control of herself. And although she is tempted,
yes,
her line, which is when I'm old enough, it's something like, I'm old enough to realize that what I want is not all that matters.
Yes.
And I think what we're showing is that Mary is now a fully fledged grown up and is able to take the responsibilities that are going to fall increasingly on her shoulders, not only because her father's getting older and all the usual reasons, but also because she is able to adjust to the 20th century and the modern world in a way that he can't really. He's a nice man and he hopes he's doing his best and he would never be rude to anyone. But in the last analysis, he is not a 20th century figure, whereas she knows she has to become one. And there are one or two giveaways in the, when he says, oh, something, bring Lady Mary to the, and she says, Mary, please. Mm-hmm. And in that, you can see that what the 20th century is going to expect of her, she is going to be able to give. Mm-hmm. And all of that, I've enjoyed. I mean, I think one of the luxuries of a long show for a writer is that when you write a movie or you write a one-off television or a stage show, whatever, you write it, it goes away, it's cast, it becomes real. But with a series, you are writing, after quite a short time, you're writing for performances you've seen and you understand. Mm-hmm. And as the years go on, you start to understand what the actors do best and where they can take you and what you can give them with real confidence. I mean, some of these men and women you're working for, they can break your heart. Yeah. And once you get that, then you write situations so they will break your heart. I mean, I always remember sobbing away at Sybil's death. And then I said to myself, you wrote it. What did you think was going to happen? But nevertheless, you know, I was crying. So I think that is a real pleasure of series writing and the potential that no other form quite gives you, as, you know, many of your readers will know.
Yes, for sure. I have to admit, I loved when you referenced the Spanish flu from the actress character. And I wonder, were you intending to sort of bring the pandemic into this?
No, but Spanish flu touched Downton and killed Matthew's fiancée.
Okay,
what
right.
I always quite like is to make references to things that have happened that won't spoil it for people who've forgotten that or never saw that episode or whatever. I don't want to make it a kind of condition of enjoyment, but I like to get that sense of a world that's going on. It's like I often refer to events in the news at the time. If there's a fuss for the Liberal government or the Marlboroughs are getting a divorce, someone will talk of it over lunch. And it doesn't matter if you pick it up or not. But if you do, and you type it into Wikipedia, then you will be told that, yes, the Marlboroughs were getting a divorce that year. Yes. And I just think it helps to create a sense. It's a difference, really, with some of the thinking that you come up against. There is a sort of thinking when you sometimes get notes back saying, oh, well, you know, we feel this is closed and finished. We don't want to refer back to this because, and no, you know, and I don't agree with that. I think what you're trying to do is to create a real world. And in a real world, you're at a lunch party and someone might make a reference to something and you don't really know what they're talking about, but you assume it has some reality. It doesn't spoil the lunch. You just get on with your life. And that's what I am trying to create in the television stuff that I write, really, a sense that it's really going on. It's like, I always like to mix the banal with the real narrative stuff, so that in one way they say, oh, Miss Gladys's young man is coming for dinner tonight. Oh, it's a change of heart. But then another character will say, did you remember the onions? And you realize that for all of us, all the time, ordinary life is going on at the same time as the particular narratives of that moment in our life.
Yes.
And I think that is true of drama too, really. Well, it's true of drama for me.
Will there be another movie?
Well, I can't answer that question. I mean, for me, as long as there is an appetite for Downton, I'm sure there'll be more Downton. But if there isn't an appetite and people have come to the end of it and this is the end, then, you know, that's fine too. I mean, I have a very relaxed feeling about it. I think we've had a terrific adventure with this show, and we've had a marvelous time making it, and it's been great. But, you know, these lives go on. Lives of characters go on just as much as real lives go on. And, you know, there's no reason for them to stop. So we just have to see if the public wants more, really. That's the big issue.
Well, I want more. Gosh, I hope there's more. Obviously, it still brings you joy to sit down with these characters. In the morning when you wake up, do you say, oh, I can't wait to write Lady Mary and all of those characters again?
Well, I do have, once I sort of get back into it, I do have a kind of enjoyment in the fact that I think I've been writing them for 13 years, and I think they are now 16 years older than when I began. Yeah. So it's almost the same. There's not very much difference. And of course, the characters have developed, the actors have developed. I mean, they were young beginners. They're leading ladies and, movie stars and all this, that, and the other. All of that's very good fun. And I do enjoy that. But I mean, I have a great taste for soap opera. I know if I had been a lawyer, I would have wanted to be a divorce lawyer. That would have been perfect for me, listening to everyone sobbing on the other side of my desk and me having to give them paper handkerchiefs to get them through the interview. Right. I'd have loved all that. I wouldn't have done business law or fraud or any of that. I'd leave that to others. I would have definitely been divorced. And I suppose, when you've lived with characters for so long, inevitably you do think, as you do with real people, I wonder what they're up to. I wonder if that move north suited them. And I feel the same.
Well, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you again, and I just worship the female characters that you have written, and thank you for contributing that as a writer to our universe. And I'm getting the chills right now. I'm so inspired by you. So thank you.
For me to thank you. You've cheered me up no end. That's lovely. Oh. Thank you very much.
Okay, you take care.
Take care. Have a good day.
Bye.